The adverse effects of intergenerational defects from military chemicals. This video explores the serious health consequences and research of exposure to volatile components in military weapons, particularly Agent Orange, and their impacts on future generations. Agent Orange was a herbicide used during the Vietnam War, containing dioxins that have been linked to severe health issues. Research indicates that veterans exposed to Agent Orange may pass on health risks to their children, leading to intergenerational defects. During Vietnam, there was an operation called Rancher's Hand. This was put into effect to decrease the ability for concealment in vegetation. From 1961 to 1971, 49.3 million liters of Agent Orange, containing more than 360 kilograms of dioxin defolanes, was sprayed multiple times over 2.6 million acres. It's estimated that 4.8 million people were exposed, including military personnel. 1969 would bring on the first wave of stillborns that was related to this. As research has been done and continues to be done, key findings are increased risks of birth defects in children of veterans, higher rates of learning disabilities and developmental issues, potential genetic and epigenetic changes due to toxic exposure, and increased probability of recurrence in cancer. Health monitoring is crucial in ongoing research for those who have been exposed to these volatile components, as they continue to face challenges generationally even today. In terms of research, veterans have shown higher incident rates for lung cancer. Between 2010 and 2016, a study showing a total of 3,958 veterans from Vietnam concluded that, of these, 994 had been exposed. They not only had a 25.4% documented recurrence in disease, but also had 4% higher probability risk for local regional recurrence of disease. Mortality of veterans with lung cancer is also higher in these exposed groups. The legacy that's been left behind of Agent Orange continues to affect families today, highlighting the importance of awareness and research into the long-term effects of chemical exposure in our military. This is an article that I found with World and Nation that shows firsthand the effects of exposure to Agent Orange, and that after even 30 years, families are still facing the aftermath of the millions of liters of chemicals that were carelessly dropped on millions of people. The exposure of dioxin is just a local level thing that has harmed the environment, but has also genetically altered people's DNA, damaging and creating deformities in people's genes. This graph outlines the statistics of post versus pre-war effects in children of Vietnam veterans. Some said that, quote, "I wouldn't have had children after coming home had I known the impact it'd have on them." This isn't the only case, though. In an article by MacDessie, one descendant stated that her dad had died at only 50 years old after exposure to Agent Orange. Another states his oldest daughter had chronic leukemia, and finally another stated that not only had her husband died from cancer after exposure, but their son had multiple defects that would disable him for life, where he wouldn't ever be able to live on his own. Approximately 3 to 6% of children from Vietnam veterans are born with some kind of birth defect. In an article by Ornstein et al., they brought up the solidarity of medical personnel as well as the received care of veterans. This relates to the topic not only in the case of using military as guinea pigs, but also the lack of help received once people come home. Ornstein states that it raises a question about whether they want to know the answer or they're just hoping that the problem will naturally go away as the veterans die. Not only that, but it also brings into the question of the VA changing the outline of benefits given to a limited percentage of people. This, along with the other countless chemicals that have been exposed to people in general, has been used in a form of experimentation. Hippocratic law has passed on a generation to avoid harm and to insist on silent obedience. Cats. I refer back to the topic because, much like the access of treatment to these patients, as well as the blind trust, military personnel can and are used as research subjects. Kat brings in Renee Girard, where she states that in many rituals the sacrificial act assumes two opposing views, appearing at times as sacred obligation to be neglected at great peril, at other times as a sort of criminal activity entailing perils of equal gravity. It is the responsibility of Congress to provide a right of action to soldiers and their families for constitutional violations. There hasn't been protections that have stayed for these individuals. Research is imperative in order to not only address their wrongs, but save more veterans from the intergenerational turmoil and defects that have plagued these people's lives.